American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
So now I'm obsessed with time. Come on, tell me about the time. Had it all in my hand tonight. Had the time of my life. When the words all come down like blues on Tuesdays gone down. Throw it all away. Throw it all away.
What up, time heads? Thanks for checking out another episode of American Timelines. I'm Joe, and Amy is busy researching the last 1959 murder that we're going to cover for next episode. But this is the first in a series of episodes I'm calling Friend Check. I'm going through my Facebook friends list, and I'm going to check in with each person that's willing to sit down and have a recorded conversation with me. We're going to find out from each friend, hey, who are you? What's your story? Why the heck are we friends on Facebook? And should we remain friends? I'm hoping to get into everybody's backstory because I think everybody's got a cool story to tell. And sometimes you don't find out stuff from people unless you sit down and talk with them. So that's what I'm trying to do. Do they have any true crime stories? Maybe. Have they seen an alien? Maybe. What about that weird guy you went to school with that got bit by a bat? We're going to tell all these stories because these are American stories. And these are American timelines. And I'm going to bring my best pal along with me, Gruff, because we've been best buds pretty much since second grade when Brett Burns knocked over his 64 pack of Crayolas. And please enjoy this first episode of the sub-series of American Timelines called Friend Check. And this week, my guest is A. Kirby McMahon, a.k.a. April Kirby. April Kirby is a local Charlotte Improv Comedian who I met this past year when she performed in one of my Nerdy Night Out shows. April's a very talented improviser who went to Duke University, originally from Ridgefield, Connecticut, from Ridgefield High School, home of the Tigers, now lives in Charlotte. Also, April is transgender. April was very honest and open in our conversation. I'm really grateful to have the chance to speak with somebody who's transitioning. I'm hoping this helps dumb, straight, cis guys like me understand people who are different than us. Because isn't that all what we want to do? Please enjoy this episode of American Timelines Friend Check with April Kirby. Are you April Kirby McMahon or just A. Kirby McMahon? Or just April?
So A. Kirby McMahon is just the Facebook name, and part of that was I go by April Kirby. That's more like
Gotcha.
my stage name.
Well, that's true.
And
as a performer, you got to have a yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and all my social medias other than Facebook are April Kirby, and then this is like just Facebook is one that was more coming back from starting in high school when I got it and all that. It's just like more of a legacy sort of thing where I keep in touch with a number of like old friends and family members. So it was, it just felt right to have like a little bit of a difference. And then also like when I was sort of coming out and stuff, that would sort of, so people wouldn't be confused as to who I was. And then of course, by making my, first name just the letter A, that shot me right to the top of all alphabetical lists. So,
yes, you are at the top of the list. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why I bring it up.
Skipped and jumped over the algorithm. Well done.
That's why I bring it up because you did that. You have gone to the top of this series we're doing called Friend Check, which I think might be part of American Timelines, the podcast I do, True Crime with my wife. So I think because we've already recorded them and I already have a podcast thing where they have listeners and we already kind of do it. And Steve's already been a co-host. So I think the only thing I have to do to tie it into what we normally do is ask you some things about your hometown, find out you're the mascot of the school you went to, and tell me any stories you have from your hometown that was maybe a murder or didn't have to be a murder, a crime.
It might
have
been a murder. Okay.
Well, maybe.
Or something crazy that happened. Like, what's your hometown known for? Whether it's a famous person or a weird thing because I think everybody's got something about their hometown. For instance, Steve and I, where we went to school, 3 girls while we were in high school were dating teachers.
Yeah.
And it was
they had a very hands-on relationship.
And nobody cared. Everybody was like,
it was kind of like an open secret,
Weird town. Like that's one
never confirmed. But to be fair, if you can be fair, this went back to when my elder sister, not one of them, but she also knew people that were dating teachers. Like
It was
in
just
the
like
80s.
people were just like sort of cool with it. So
It was just kind of like well, there could be worse things. I don't know.
They were like, they were like,
never
we've still
asked.
got lead in our gasoline. We've still got Reagan's still in office.
We still chewed on the little lead things that would pop out of the electrical boxes.
Yeah, and that's like
that you could use for slugs and quarters or just chew on.
Yeah, and they knew lead was bad at the time, but people just weren't ready to give it up. Just like
it
cigarettes,
was just too easy.
Just like cigarettes now, it's like, come on, I've been doing this my whole life. Just let me have this one little thing. It
makes my teeth stronger. I look like Jaws from James Bond.
Cigarettes. Have you ever smoked, April?
I did. Cigarettes? I smoked for like a decade.
Oh, a decade. Okay.
What'd you smoke?
Yeah. What did you smoke? That's a good question.
We'll beep it out.
I started by smoking American Spirits, like a true little hipster, but it was like too intense on my lungs, so I switched to Camel Turkish Golds because I saw it to be a little hipster, but I couldn't do the spirits anymore.
You've since quit smoking, right? I assume.
Yeah,
as most people
smoked like a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Oh, really? Only a year and a half? Good. Oh, well, good for you then. So it's kind of new.
Stay strong.
So I find, so we both used to smoke, Steve and I, and I find that when you talk about, like when you said Turkish Gold, that made me want to have a cigarette really bad for some reason,
Yeah. Well, you were a fan of the Turkish Gold. You're
those
were
good.
A fan of the Camel Reds.
I liked the Camel Red Lights, and I liked the American Spirits.
Oh yeah, no, I was a American Spirit, light blue.
Light blue. Okay, so I recently just discovered, because I bought a pack for the lake this summer when I went. And I was like, you know what? We're sitting around the fire anyway. I'm breathing shit. I'm gonna smoke cigarettes. So I went to buy a pack of cigarettes. Haven't bought them in, I don't know, 10 years probably. And I was like, hey, give me a pack of American Spirit Lights. And they were like, well, which is that? And I was like, I don't know. You tell me. Like, you're selling them. Like, I don't know. They just have different colors. They don't have anything on them. Yeah. And I was like, why not? And then my friend Christina told me they can't say light or ultralight anymore.
Oh, yep.
Like there was some law passed, like because it suggests that they're better for you or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't realize that's why that was, but I always thought it was just like because they want you to get into like the lore of American Spirits, like go on their website and find out all the names of everything.
Yeah, no, that's what I did. Yeah. The different colors, like there's like an organic Perquet was the black label. Oh yeah.
Huh. Hey, I don't know. Anyway, a little side tangent, which we do here. We like to embrace a tangent. How do we get on cigarettes? How do we? What was I asking?
Just recently quit smoking.
Oh, your name A. Yeah. Because hometown, whatever. So I remember a couple things from when. So we'll just let the listeners know we did this already. We had a great conversation, and it was an hour and a half. Probably I thought we had a good time. It was great, good connection.
I enjoyed it.
All you internet sleuths, if you can find the lost episode, you win $4 million courtesy of Joe and Steve. That's paid in cash and a free
non-sequential dollars.
So, yeah.
Oh no! What are you promising?
Nothing.
Not for me. But I do. The biggest thing I took away from our conversation, I think, was the biggest surprise for me, was that you were really into Pokemon. Like you were like a Pokemon, not Go, but the card game. Magic. Magic.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I got them mixed up. Yeah,
I was never.
You were looking at me crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I wasn't a Pokemon, but I wasn't like very like good at it. I wasn't one of those hardcore Ash Ketchums, but yeah, Magic. I definitely played a lot of Magic.
Magic the Gathering, right?
Yeah, and and when I was playing, I was equally embarrassed about both, and now both of them are. I don't know if they're actually cool, but they're cool enough in the internet bubble I've cultivated for myself that I'm like, I should have stuck with it.
So
they've moved into a nice mainstream, or just to the side of the mainstream.
Close. I was going to say, why were you embarrassed? Was it a thing like in high school or middle school that was embarrassing, or was it?
Yeah, I think it was partially just like there was like a little bit of a stigma attached to it. And I think part of it was also like just like personal stuff. Like I just tried to not be associated with anything. That's all like gender stuff. But
Gotcha.
like the general thing with magic was it was like ultra like omega like nerdy thing to do for whatever. I don't know what it was like at other schools, but for whatever reason in our school it was like the nerdiest thing you could do, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so it was sort of like if you did play you wouldn't make a big
You wouldn't
like
tell
point of it.
everybody.
Like I would never bring like my cards to school or anything like that.
Yeah.
That it would just be like a totally, I would try and keep it completely separate. I would go into the card store that was in town, and that's where all that would happen.
Gotcha.
And then
Gotcha.
it was funny because actually the some of the cool kids, there's like a parking lot kind of nearby, and you know cool kids in their parking lots, they were hanging out in that parking lot, and
Yeah.
sometimes they'd come up to the store just to be like, in my head canon it was like, oh, they want to learn to play but they're too intimidated by us to, but they were just like, I don't know, just checking out the scene or whatever, and that was always like,
Well, you got to wander around the parking lot. You can't just hang out in the spot of it, I guess.
yeah, you got to
Mhm.
make mischief, you got to
Yeah.
have like some pranks, and you can only
Some loud, yeah.
yeah, you can only nut tap your bros so many times before you got to go find something else to
You got to do
do.
to talk loudly by, you know, to
Yeah,
just scream at. Yeah.
yeah, just like sort of, yeah, just say something loud. And like a great one was just like sort of just like narrating what some random person inside's doing, so you could hear it and be like, yeah, oh, they're eating chicken fingers now or something like that.
Yeah.
There was a pizza
That's a
place
good
nearby that had really good chicken fingers, so we were eating
Nice.
chicken fingers a lot there.
That's making me hungry for chicken fingers. So
You
that
know, I think you might just be very suggestible because first you wanted cigarettes and now you want chicken fingers.
yeah, I think I'm just like
Oh,
I'm just very needy right now. Like I got a lot of
Well,
needs right now. I'm not needs,
Although,
but
I
You're
like,
will
just filling some holes. That's
Yeah.
all.
I'm gonna send y'all a picture. I just made chicken fingers for dinner tonight.
ooh,
Oh,
whoa, April, those look good. Are they spicy at all?
Just a little peppery.
It's like some
But
pepper, man. Those
yeah,
look
Oh,
good.
I can make them
nice.
spicy. Yeah, those are.
nice.
And then
All
I
right.
do the French fry crab.
For the listener, just picture some delicious fried favorites next to some French fries. Oh man, I guess I'm hungry.
Also a fried fish.
My
Yeah.
wife's just she's making chicken enchiladas right now. So
Ooh.
Oh, that
So
sounds good.
that's our end
I
time
want,
is your dinner time. Nice.
yeah, I want some chicken enchiladas. I'm very suggestible too.
Are you suggestible too? Yeah, my wife's
Yeah.
a very good cook. She's very retro. Like as far as style, like she likes to wear an apron and the victory rolls in her hair, and there's some
Oh,
weird
she
all
does
kinds
the
of funny.
victory
Oh,
roll.
yeah.
Yeah, she's like the fancy like dresses, like crazy wacky dresses, and she's a school teacher, so the kids just love
that's so
her.
wonderful.
You know,
Yeah.
little kids like
I
special
love
ed. So,
that.
yeah, you would love her.
Yeah.
So wait, okay. So let me back up. So when you're talking about school, I'm trying to figure out age wise. So it was probably the early 2000s that you were in high school, or
Yeah, I
mid-2000s?
graduated. Yeah, I graduated high school in 2007.
Okay, gotcha. So around that time. And then I see you're from Connecticut, right?
Yeah, I'm originally. Yeah, I
Oh.
grew up in Ridgefield, Connecticut.
Ridgefield,
Nice.
Connecticut. So what's that
Mhm.
close to? We may have
A
talked
lot
about
is
closest-
Connecticut. It's just
Yeah, the closest place that people have most often heard of is Danbury, or maybe Stamford.
Oh, Stamford. Okay, I've heard of Stamford,
Yeah.
Connecticut. Yeah.
It's like 25-30 minutes from Stamford, but it's like our house was like a 5-minute walk from the New York state border.
Okay. Okay.
nice.
So it's sort of
That
like
helps.
it's in the county in Connecticut that's sort of in like the southwest corner closest to New York. So it's like
okay.
if most of Connecticut is like kind of like is like sort of slotted in with New England, and that county had a tendency to get kind of slotted in with like more New Yorky type stuff.
Okay.
New Yorky stuff. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it just makes me think of, it's probably not exactly close, but makes me think of Newhart, like Vermont and stuff like that, but I'm probably off a little bit.
I've never been to Newhart, but it's got like, it definitely had some like, New England town vibes, but then it was also like a bunch of commuters who went to like New York City or
Oh
Stanford.
yeah, okay. So I see New Haven.
It's a nice blend of a metro. I was
Stanford, okay.
I was driving a friend of ours up to Stanford, and we actually stayed the night at this weird little motel that was within sight of the WWE headquarters.
Oh, yeah.
The only reason I knew it was the WWE headquarters is because they always showed it at the end title card in the 80s when I watched it.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I was just like, well, it's like, that's really familiar because it was before they put the big WWE up on it. It was just a reflective glass building that was burned into my memory from my childhood watching that show. Yeah.
So you're pretty straight south from Montreal. I see. Okay.
We got to that tangent because we were asking about things your hometown is known for.
Mm-hmm.
Ours was inappropriate.
Yes, right. So Ridgefield. So you Ridgefield, Connecticut. I get so confused by that geography. This is the worst I am at geography. All that stuff between Boston and Connecticut and New York. I'm all like, yeah, Delaware's in there somewhere, Rhode Island. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what any of that is. I'm terrible.
So
at it.
if you go fast enough, it goes
Hampshire.
by pretty quick. It's
true.
Yeah, if you're flying through
It all blends together.
or just driving through. When you're driving through, you can like cross borders in that area rather quickly.
So it's like clam country.
Yeah, so at some point you transition from clam strips to whole belly clams, and that's when you know you're like in the New England.
Yeah.
So do you like clams?
I do. They're one of my favorite. I like them fried. I like them steamed. If they're, I don't really see them for like great deals at the grocery store down here, but back when I was in Durham, occasionally they'd have for a decent price, and I would just get them and steam them up. Yeah, they're super fun. There's a fun like pasta recipe I have for like little neck clams. Yeah, nice. But I like all kinds of seafood. That's I guess that's like the most New Englandy part of me is all the seafood I got into while I was up there.
It's a good amount. And it's a good
it's true.
Seafood.
Yeah,
there's a distinct difference between a clam and a shrimp.
It's true. Yeah, that's the first thing they taught us in kindergarten.
Yes,
like this is a clam.
Let's go clamming. A clam and a
completely different.
Like shit and Chinola and the jerk. Okay, and I see that you studied hopscotch at Duke University, which I love that. I love that whole thing. Duke. Yeah. So Duke, you were a Duke graduate, like undergrad, right? At Duke.
Yeah, I went to Duke for undergrad and grad school. So
that's
I did,
right. Okay. Yes.
So I was a history major undergrad, and then grad school I went for public policy.
Okay. Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
So is that when you started doing improv, or did you do improv in high school?
So I had no conception that improv was a thing that existed. Well, actually, it was weird. I didn't have like a strong conception of improv, but I did watch Whose Line Is It Anyway a lot. So
okay,
I don't know how I squared those two things. I thought that was just like a thing they did on that specific show.
Right.
That they were all the ones who came up with it, and they were the only ones who could do it.
Interesting.
But then I got to college. They had an improv team there. I was like very excited to give that a try. I tried 2 years. I did not make it either year, but I did make the sketch team my second year. Like my first year, I didn't make the improv team, and I just bided my time the whole year. I'm like, I'm going to crush it next year. And then I did even worse in the next year's auditions. So I just went to sketch. And then I got into improv after I graduated from college. I was back in Connecticut for a little while. And so I was working in Stanford, and I would take the train into New York City to take like Upright Citizens Brigade classes.
Oh, that's cool. UCB.
Yeah.
So college is when you started doing like finding the improv and doing it. Yeah. So you didn't grow up doing it, but because it blows me away because I know you as an improviser. We met not too long ago. I don't know. Now it's been probably, has it been a year? I don't even know when that was.
It's probably been at least a year. Yeah.
Yeah, Nerdy Night Show. And you were very good. Like you stood out as a very, what seemed to me is like a seasoned vet at improv.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jen Bianchi brought you on to do a 2-prov for, oh man, I think it was the Shark. I want to say it was the Shark.
Yeah, that was the Shark Night, because I remember, the thing I remember from it is the thing you said about the claspers that they have. And then I remember, like, I just got to do that at some point in the scene, and then I'll count it as a win. And we got there in the end.
Yeah. And so so I was just very impressed. And then I've actually gotten a lot of comments afterwards. It's like, you got to bring her back. Very funny. And then I think you did the Wax Out Tap House show, right?
Yeah, we did that. With Foxes.
Yeah. And you were very talented there too. Like a couple people came with me there and said, great group. And that you stood out as just quick-witted and funny. And so I think that's like that is something everyone strives to have, because I mean, it's one thing to get out there and do it, but then to be as quick on your feet. And that's why one of the reasons I stopped doing improv years ago is just like, by the time I think of something, it's too late. That scene's over. I already dang it. So it's like you have to be smart and quick. And I feel like there was something we touched on last time we talked that we kind of maybe attributed, but I can't remember what it was. Something that made you quick and smart. Or maybe it's your studies at Duke. The fact that you're at Duke. I can't remember. Do you remember?
Oh, you know what? Well, the thing that came to mind now, I don't know if it's what I talked about last time, but I didn't really do like improv or sketch growing up, but I was always like, and it was weird. I would try to not like stand out as myself, but I would want to be like the funny person. So it started out with like, I would quote like lots of TV shows and stuff like that. And then eventually like a couple people got mad at me and like yelled at me for quoting too many different things. I was like, oh, I've got to come up with my own original stuff to get people like, and it was like a process for me of like, I was always knew I wanted to do that. And so like, I would like continually be like adjusting based on like the reactions people gave me and stuff like that. And I would always try and like learn what the rule was, so to speak, even though there isn't really a rule necessarily. But like it took, but like over years and years, just like, I don't know, I guess like thinking about it really hard, or just like sort of having a mindset of like, oh, I have to like figure out why this stuff works and other stuff doesn't. I guess that was like the closest thing I had to like doing improv or sketch growing up, was just like this sort of singular focus on like, this is how I'm going to be like socially acceptable, because otherwise people would just be like, oh, you're just like kind of weird, aren't you?
The conscious effort put into being entertaining.
Yeah.
The conscious effort put into reading a room.
Yeah.
There's no rule, but when you walk into a room, they're going to like, they're probably going to gauge more towards these jokes or that.
Yeah, exactly. And if there's like one universal rule, it's that if you make people laugh before they realize that you're weird, then when they do realize you're weird, then it's like
just
fine.
because you laugh. Yes.
Yeah,
I like to think of it as the Gonzo. It's like a Gonzo
sense.
rule.
That's like part of your whole deal.
It's just
your own mysterious process. It's all part of the magic.
Yeah. Gonzo's my favorite Muppet. Like, of the Muppet TV show, Gonzo is my favorite. I have to differentiate between the Muppet Show and that part of the Henson verse and other parts of the Henson verse, like Sesame Street. Sometimes I'm very Bert, other times I'm much more Ernie, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like, sometimes I need to feel like I'm Bert in a situation, just to feel like, like I feel like authoritative and
Bert got shit done.
Like I can control the proceedings.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, hey, I need a little freedom just to be me, just to express myself.
Exactly. Sing to the rubber ducky.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can't always be, unless you're Bert, or even Bert and Ernie can't always be Bert and Ernie. Sometimes Bert.
Yeah, sometimes Bert takes a little bit of Ernie and Ernie takes a little bit of Bert.
Yeah. I think that was like the first lesson on
It was in
Sesame
there.
Street.
It was
That was
it
in
was
somewhere in
like
there.
brought to you by E or F. I can't remember. It's been a long time.
So that I think what a lot of people that end up in comedy, like you said, is people who, and it seems like a lot of people who are either feel like an outcast or feel like they're different or are afraid to be picked on. It's like bullying in comedy goes. So it's such a great way. People like, you always hear people say, like, I make fun of myself before you can make fun of me. And then you kind of take that power away, and then you're the funny guy. And it's like, I'm either going to get shit beat out of me or I'm going to be the funny guy. And they're going to, if I make you laugh, you can't be hitting me. Which is kind of a strategy I took when I worked with people with disabilities. Was I had to be the behavior specialist. And part of it was like how to de-escalate situations, how to get people not to hit you.
Yeah.
And people rarely hit you when they're laughing. Like, so if you can keep people funny. So it's like this ingrained thing with comedians. Like, most of us have been bullied or picked on or afraid we're going to be picked on or felt like the outcast, but we become these comedians. And then I just think it's so funny how so many have inner things going on and inner turmoil and things, but on the outside we're making you laugh, we're entertaining you, and you're getting this benefit. But meanwhile, we have all the shit going on inside, just a defense mechanism. But
well, it's so funny because like part of that like lack of identity for me was like related to like gender stuff, but like I also, like in high school, I was just like big enough that most people just like couldn't like threaten me with violence realistically, like because I was like 6'3", I weighed like 250 in high school.
Oh, really? That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, Steve doesn't know you're tall. You're very tall.
No, I don't.
Yeah, and so
I don't know you outside this wee box.
I didn't realize you were 6'3", but very tall.
Yeah, it was just, and like it's so interesting to think back now because like looking back, like sorry, looking back, people did kind of like pick on me in the ways that, in like some ways, but like at the time it like didn't register to me as such. It was just like them telling me what I needed to know and stuff like that. So it was just interesting, like it's thinking back, like the ways that some stuff unfolded, and looking back in retrospect, it was like at the time I was just trying to sort of like get to this like point of like identity that I figured I would eventually get to if I just kept plugging along and tried to be like that person, which included being like funny and getting attention that way. But yeah, in retrospect, it was like, no, people just like thought I was kind of weird and would call it out sometimes, and were kind of jerks about it sometimes. Like, and like I was fortunate that it didn't have to be like a situation where I'd be like scared for my safety or anything like that. But that part of that was like, but yeah, part of that was like in reaction to those types of things, like wanting to have something that felt like okay for me to do, that like my vibe as well.
So I think that's
I
think there's a lot of people like Steve and I, straight white guys, that are aren't sure about transitioning and what it's like for you and how hard it must have been. There's no way we can imagine that, other than just knowing it had to be so difficult. So
just thank you for sharing this.
So we really appreciate that. So you felt like, I think you said this before, that you always knew something was different, that you had a different identity that you just didn't like come to terms with. And then was there a moment when you just went for it or finally realized, or I'm not sure, it wasn't like you didn't wake up, but you finally were just like, I mean, how did you get the courage to do it, I guess, is the question. Like,
so I guess the way, usually what I bring up when I talk about this sort of thing that I think is surprising to some people is that, I had like gender stuff, like quote unquote, like there were signs of things that I like that were more reflective of like the gender expression I would want to have. And I would do those things throughout my life. Absolutely. But sort of the big underlying thing was like, I talked about like sort of not having a sense of self and there is also this sort of like underlying sort of existential distress that I would interpret in a lot of different ways. Part of me, like a lot of it would be like, oh, this is just like the human condition and everyone feels this way. And sometimes it would be like, oh, like maybe there's like some kind of like curse that I'm dealing with. Like I'd even really like believe in curses, but like to whatever extent that like curses can be a thing, I'm just like dealing with like exceptionally bad luck in how I feel about stuff.
Sure.
Things like that. And it didn't really, like in my mind at that time, like whatever gender stuff I have and like that thing were like treated as two separate things.
Okay.
But and over time, the existential challenge portion, and of course this is just my experience too, but the existential like challenge part of it, the dissociation, the lack of identity, just got worse and worse, and just the pull to do stuff that was more true gender expression got stronger and stronger, and I became more aware of like sort of trans, I don't want to say role models, because by that age I was like, it wasn't like a role model thing, but like just trans people who were just like living their lives and weren't like a TV caricature or something like that. And eventually the excuses became more like, well, if I haven't already decided to transition, then I must not really be trans, et cetera, et cetera. But eventually I just got to a point where like the existential challenges just really had my shields down. I was in a vulnerable place, and I just saw something that helped me give myself permission to just like say, well, what do I want? And then once that happened, the floodgates kind of opened. And the real shocking revelation is that once I started, and this was just like a couple years ago.
Wow. Okay.
Less than 2 years. Yeah. When I started transition, the real shocking part was that once I started taking those steps, it started to alleviate this underlying pain that I thought was just like this existential misery that everyone feels like, and just realizing that it was something I could address. Like,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was just something I'd accepted that like that I would never, that would just be like a part of my life. And like even the decision to transition was like, well, I might as well try it. Right.
Wow.
What can it hurt to just see how that goes, and to say that it had a big impact on me is like a huge understatement. It was like it was addressing that underlying pain, and then it's also, for me personally, it was also like once I started hormone therapy, it was like an ability to connect with my emotions that I did not like. I always used to be like, because I was like a big like got into like super into feminism and stuff in college and all that stuff, and part of that would always be like we could go down a whole rabbit hole of that, but for the purposes of this story, one of the things I would always be like was like, oh, I don't understand why guys can't control their emotions. Like, I have emotions and I control them just fine. And having sort of experienced like more like true like full-fledged emotions in the last couple of in the last like year and a half or so, I was like, oh, I get it now. It's not that easy. There's like a little more to it than I thought. I was just like feeling all that through I always liken it to those like little like sleeves you put in to like protect like comic books and stuff. Like I was in one of those, like feeling everything through that. And
and then being out in the air.
Wow.
So
very good analogy.
And so it's interesting because I'm a person who sort of like in retrospect the signs were always there, but like came to this full realization and decision later in life. And there are other people who have such a strong innate sense of who they are from like early in life, and just kind of know and have the words for it, who say it from a very young age, and that can be a very different experience too. So it's interesting. It's hard for me to even imagine, like I think part of it was myself, like sort of like, yeah, feeling ready to do it and protecting my brain from myself a little bit until I
Yeah.
was in a space where I could try it.
I'm
And
sure. Yeah.
but yeah, that's
Mhm.
I think that's sort of like the big um takeaway, or that I hope people have when they hear about like at least my personal experience is
Mhm.
just like it really, like, there is the expression component in what we want and who to be our like authentic selves and things like that, but there is like a real psychological toll that it takes over time, and part of like sort of finding that true personal expression is like addressing like the harm you've done to yourself over the years. I'm trying to deny that. And for some people, it's even like just like the actual like being on the wrong hormones is also like a source of discomfort
Oh yeah,
and pain and sort of
yeah.
like, yeah, it's
Yeah. I
and
imagine. Um,
yeah,
it's fascinating just the layers, the complex layers of what you've gone through and what you were feeling and how hard it was for you to even know what it was. And that, I mean,
Mhm.
the just,
A knot so tangled that you didn't even know how to untangle it until you came at it from a different angle and it just
and the fact that it
started
released,
loosening.
like you released something else that you didn't even
Mhm.
know was the cause is fascinating and
Yeah.
amazing. And it just like, I think it just like gets to the crux of the whole political thing. Everybody, that people are talking about, nobody can get it. Like
No.
nobody,
Yeah.
not nobody.
yeah,
There are people that do get it, but a lot of us have no idea, can't even fathom what you're talking about. So I felt like you did a great job just now of
Yeah.
kind of explaining and touching on the fact that it's so complicated. It's almost a feeling that you can't even really explain how you felt. Like the
yeah,
fact that you
it's
Mhm.
had this different, I don't know, this pain that has
Yeah.
kind of
yeah,
released. I mean, it's that nobody can fathom. That's what I don't know. Anytime I hear the whole stupid right wing talking points about, oh, we're indoctrinating our children and we're like
Yeah.
forcing, children to choose gender. It's like it's easy for somebody who's never felt any kind of this type of way to just whatever, and just
Yeah. To
like
dismiss it.
cast
But
yeah,
aspersions. And it's just sad to me that it's become this talking point just because they need this, the right needs an enemy all the time, and it's why easier than
they
just
need a
somebody
distraction
who's
from
different.
having nothing.
Yeah, somebody who's different than
yeah,
you.
Yeah.
But just like the fact that what you guys, the whole trans population is going through and goes through, all that to say, there is progress. I mean, it's like there's been
hmm
so much progress, and so that's good. But it's like progress through the pain. It's like you got to go through
yeah,
all this. And progress is never easy. It always hurts everywhere you
absolutely.
get to. But
Yeah.
um, but like you said, you're just sharing your story to hopefully help one other person. If one other
Yeah.
person
Because it helped
helps,
you
yeah,
seeing people living their authentic selves.
Yeah,
It gave you a point to go, wait a second, I can draw that line, you
yeah,
know?
absolutely. And yeah, I think that's really the crucial part of visibility. I think part of it is normalizing, that
Hmm.
trans people exist in society and people just getting used to that reality. But I think you raise a great point of the other big part of it is like, how could I not have known growing up? Well, the trans representation on TV was like Mrs. Garrison and the guy from Ace Ventura.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, there
And
was
they
no
were just
frame
like
of, we
made
don't
fun
teach
of,
the right
and
questions.
yeah,
We don't teach to ask
yeah,
questions.
yeah, and yeah, just having, right, and of course, like, no person's experience will be exactly the same as mine,
No.
but I've
Yeah.
just learned from experience talking about it with people,
Yeah.
that like the overlaps are there, and then just sort of being honest and open of describing like one's own process and journey, that
Mhm.
people will relate to different parts of that, and it'll help them decide for themselves, and also just like to have sort of trans people be there and say like you don't have to gatekeep yourself. That was such a big part for
Yeah.
me, was like, yeah, there's like, right, there's this whole like sort of hyper elevated image that existed, that like I was like, well, if I don't meet that, like either like the caricature types or just like the commitment to like being this certain image, then
Yeah.
that must not be me. Whereas it's yeah, really the thing that's most important is sort of being able to listen to your own wants. And one of the hardest parts about that is, for a lot of people, I think, is just treating the things that you want as valid and happening for a reason, and just thinking about the next steps along those lines, and not being
Yeah.
like, well, am I allowed to have these things? Like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not like smoking. I mean, it's a bad habit. You have to, if you want to smoke again, you have to allow certain things like, apocalypse.
mhm.
If there's a general zombie thing going on, I'm going to start smoking again.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
You lost me on that bit. Uh,
Well, no, it was a jump. It was a leap
yeah.
to the left. It was. I was
Yeah,
fearful
I
of
mean,
making that to
it's
take away from what you're saying, because
Yeah,
everything
right.
you're saying was
well, it is an
wonderful. Yeah.
it is an interesting parallel too, because I think people do need to sometimes make the leap from like like I had like my good little feminist upbringing in college, so that like I
Mhm.
could be like, no, it's not wrong to like any of these things. I'll deny them to myself for other reasons. But some people will go through the struggle of like, if they are just like doing basic forms of gender expression, like a little bit of makeup or clothing or something like that, and being like,
Mhm.
no, this is wrong. Like I'm doing a bad thing when I do this. I'm indulging myself. And and treating it like something they sort of have to like, almost like it is smoking or like a bad habit or something like
Oh
that,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
sort of taking that step of just like it being an honest reflection of what I want. And the healthy thing is actually me
Mhm.
thinking harder about why I like these things and seeing what
Hmm.
direction it should go and that works best for me, is really the healthy thing to do, and is not this like weird like indulgence or
Yeah.
something like
No,
that.
that's
It's
wonderful.
really the yeah. It's yeah. It's very interesting the way that can go, because like even with me, like even though like I had like the feminist underpinnings, to say that like um gender expression in the way I wanted to wasn't like such a bad thing, I would find ways to tell myself it was still bad, like like I'm invading these spaces or things like that. And yeah, it's yeah, that's one of the trickiest parts, is just not being hard on yourself, and saying it's okay to want the things you want.
Mhm.
So I'm curious with with being a performer and transitioning. So you weren't an actor too. Like you didn't like act in plays or
No,
anything
I
like
did
that,
like
right?
sketch shows a little bit, but like
Okay.
no, not like serious acting.
But I mean, I know you're an improviser. So has that been, I don't know, is it, you think, better or worse or easier or harder transitioning while you're a performer? Did you take a break from performing for a while and just be like, let me figure this out and then come back to it once you were more comfortable? Or was it, did you just, it was like a therapeutic thing? I'm just curious if there was
Um,
any kind of,
I would say so. The first 6 months I was transitioning, the most of the shows that were happening were still live and online. But basically, I was early enough I never really stopped. Like I did think there were a couple of live shows during that time, and at that point in time, I would just sort of basically just like go and say, "Hey, I'm still like a boy." Like I wasn't out to anyone, so I would be in like what would be called like boy mode,
okay.
basically. So yeah, it would be just like basically like there came a time when I was ready to be fully out to like the improv community, and
Mm-hmm.
before that, if I wanted to go do a show, but I didn't want to have to like explain myself or whatever, I would just dress up and present as a boy, which it does solve like the logistical problem, but like eventually you do just like, at least for me, it was like that takes a toll over time. And so I just have to,
Do you mean to sort
yeah,
of take a toll, like you feel like you're not being your true self, or you're hiding something, or at that point, since
yeah,
you're still transit, you just didn't feel
yeah,
like
it's,
explaining to everybody.
yeah, because it's sort of, when we talked about like the link between authentic expression and this like underlying existential pain, that underlying pain was gender dysphoria and feeling like misaligned.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I would liken it to like if you had like sort of just like a wound somewhere on your body that was just like kind of maybe a little bit scarred over, but it hasn't really healed. And like, so it wasn't necessary. And like going back into boy mode, like kind of poking at it a little bit, right? So
Okay.
it's not necessarily like going and doing it once was such a bad thing. But I'm like acutely aware now of this, like the existence of this thing. And like the more I poke at it when I'm trying to heal it, like the more it's just like making it
Yeah.
worse and keeping it from healing the way it's supposed to. And so I do, and so I would feel that. And like over time it just got harder and harder. Like the more I accepted like the comfort of actually like being in my own skin, the harder it became to sort of do that other thing. So it sort of worked out in that like I had an audition with a comedy theater in Raleigh that I knew a lot of people at. So I just was like, I'm gonna come out to like a bunch of these people right before the
Wow.
audition.
Yeah.
I did that, did the audition, and um, it's like it is definitely different coming out on stage. It feels like, yeah, the dynamics just change in some ways. And part of it too is just like, oh, I just know how people perceive like trans people versus like cis men, and so like what's that going to entail in any given show. But beyond that, it's still like a lot of it's just still the improv and finding some differences, but other things like um stay largely the same. Yeah.
Cool. It's
I haven't.
just, sorry, not to interrupt. I'm sorry to
Oh,
cut you
not at
off.
all.
I was just gonna say it's just I mean, I'd imagine it makes you, maybe not, but I think just because you're such a strong improviser, I wonder if were you always that good? Like, were you always like really good at improv, or was it like, that people are judging you even more as a, not only everybody's gonna make me laugh, why you're not funny, and then you're also a person who's trans on stage, so you might be worried about judgment also. So does it
Yeah.
make you that much funnier? I mean, I don't know how you can do it. I don't get how you do it. Like, it's hard
Yeah.
enough to be funny.
It's interesting if there's like a little bit of a difference, sort of touching on what you're speaking to. I do feel a little bit of, especially going into a new situation, I do feel a little bit of pressure to sort of like get the initial like ice breaking kind of laugh, like the, oh yeah, she's all right kind of.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is just like a hyper awareness of like, um, trans women especially sometimes are sort of treated as like scoldy or humorless. And
Sure.
so like,
Yeah.
so I sort of do feel that compulsion to be like, let's get one out there
Yeah.
real quick, so people who
Okay.
aren't sure what to think before they can start thinking some shitty
Yeah.
thoughts,
They can
can
Yeah.
just
start.
be
They
like,
can.
oh, it's the same
Yeah.
instinct. It's the same instinct that led me to want to like hit those jokes way back when I was younger in the first place. So I do feel that a little bit, and I mean a lot of that's just in my head and just being like, what can I do to feel comfortable on this stage. But also I just did improv for, I guess I've been going on like 10 years now.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a long
And
time. Yeah.
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 yeah. And
You're
right.
good. You were probably just already really good.
Oh, thank you.
I'm
I
guessing.
will say like, yeah, I will say like right before the pandemic, I was doing like 5 or 6 shows a week, something like that.
Oh shit.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's like,
Nice.
I
Yeah,
know
that's
if you're
Yeah, Steve,
like
this is one of the best improvisers in the Carolinas. So I
well,
mean, it's
thank you
like
for sharing your
this is a
time.
very strong.
This is-
So I mean,
yeah.
that's it's like sort of like I feel sometimes like these questions are probably dumb or insulting, but just because I don't know the background, but I would think I would guess like is transitioning during a pandemic. I mean, you only know that, so probably, but do you think that was easier or harder that it was also a pandemic going on? Like, was it like, oh, I'm not gonna see anybody for a while, I can really think about this, or was it like, geez, on top
Yeah.
of everything else,
Really
I gotta
Yeah,
committed.
having the space to do it, I will say, was nice. And sort of also moving from the Triangle to Charlotte and not knowing as many people, I felt like I could just go out,
yeah.
Yeah.
dress how I would, and sort of feel like, I don't know, I feel like I have reasonably thick skin to just like people staring or giving me like a look or something.
Sure.
So it was sort of like, all right, if strangers do that, whatever. I just didn't want to
Mhm.
run into like someone I knew before I was ready to say anything. So in
Yeah.
a lot of ways that was helpful. But that actually does raise another story, which is funny because I didn't officially like be like, yes, I'm transitioning. This is what's happening until about like, like a little over a year and a half ago. But to start the pandemic, a couple things, like as soon as people started isolating, the first thing I decided was I'm going to grow my hair out.
Mhm. Yeah,
Just
no, it's
just
the easiest thing to do. Yeah.
yeah, but this was like before I even like
Thought
told
about it.
myself I was
Yeah.
actually transit. I just like,
Oh, you weren't
and
Well,
someone
yeah,
transitioning.
actually
just
Yeah.
asked
grow
me,
your hair
like,
out.
they were
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
hey, people are getting haircuts. Why are you still growing your hair out? And I was like, I don't know. When am I ever going to be able to? I just feel like I won't ever be able to do this again.
No, yeah, it's
Yeah.
And they were
one
like,
last
oh,
time.
okay.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they like left it alone.
Yeah, it's always
But
it's always a good
yeah, but I even like, so it doesn't stop there. I have like a whole skincare, like special skincare routine I took up. I
Nice.
started being more conscious about like the colors of clothing from my wardrobe that I was wearing. I was doing a lot of like
Okay.
lighter pastels of what I happen to have.
Mhm.
And I did this for like a good like 4 to 6 months at the start of the pandemic. It was like my sourdough project, but it was
You're
literally
sour.
just like me.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I can look back in retrospect and basically be like, oh, I was like trying to start transition without like telling myself that's what I was
You're just
doing.
prepping.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Yeah.
I was, and then I like stopped for a little while. Like I was like, shaving and stuff too. You haven't seen me with a beard, but like I
Mhm.
used to have a beard, wear a beard all the time before the pandemic.
Okay.
And that's like a pretty common thing
Mhm.
too. It's the terminology for it is like a dysphoria beard. And I literally would
Really?
like have the worry that like literally I would have like a very serious worry that if I ever like fully shaved it, that my like the skin on my face would like look so awful and be covered with like horrible hives and stuff,
Oh wow.
and
Yeah.
that like I just couldn't do it. But eventually I shaved it when the pandemic started, but then I sort of reverted. I like let the beard grow all the way back out. I like started putting on all my like thickest like sweaters and things like that. I started my diet kind of got to a point where I just wasn't really in control of it,
Hmm.
the way I normally like to be. And sort of all that sort of like led up to the moment of like, all right, let's making a conscious decision now of
Yeah.
but
Gosh.
it's so interesting in retrospect. And I mean, like, we could talk all day about like little signs I had going back, but like that
Yeah.
I literally was like, with the little information on how it worked that I had at the time, I was doing all I could to like initiate a transition. And I wouldn't even have like said to anyone like, oh yeah, that's what's happening.
Oh,
I
man.
didn't even attempt to explain it. It was just like a thing I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a just a thing we can't even imagine. So that's why I think it's great when we talk about it, and the more people talk about it, the more people like us seek it out and like
Yeah.
let's find out. Let's talk about it. Because I think the tendency is just like, just white American generals just be like, I just won't say anything because I don't want to say the wrong thing. So we just shut up and don't say anything. And some people don't want to talk about it. So I don't want to bring it up if they're not bringing it up. But if you bring it up, I'll talk about it, that kind of thing. So it's just like, I really appreciate you really sharing all this. And I think this is good for more people to hear and talk. And the more we all talk, like you said, normalizing this.
No,
this is a thing
this
people
is
have,
every day. This is happening. This is reality. And the more people that see it, the more we can all share in the same beautiful milieu that we have.
And that said, now tell us about a murder in your hometown.
Exactly.
A murder. Oh, this was the real question I was dreading, because I don't know if there was.
Maybe there wasn't, but
Murder
it
that
doesn't
I
have to
mean,
be a murder.
It could
or
be a
crime or
metaphorical
something
murder.
crazy that happened
Yeah.
in your school, or like did anything burn down, or was there the last person we had, you probably know her. We just interviewed Abby Elfman. I don't know if you know Abigail Elfman or not. She's in Now Where the Fox Is, but anyway, she told us about a kid at her school that got rabies and died.
Yeah.
Oh my
he got
God.
bit by a bat while he was sleeping. So
Oh my God.
And didn't do
I had
anything
to get a
about it.
rabies.
Yeah.
I had to get a rabies shot when I was in middle school, but because of a bat. But
really,
Well, good.
wait,
Yeah.
because of a bat or not because of a bat?
because of a bat.
Oh, really? You got bit by one?
No, it was just we went on a service project, and we slept in an old abandoned middle school, and there were bats in the vents, and so they flew. So we caught one. We saw one like one night, just like flying in our room above everyone sleeping in their sleeping bags, and then they were like, "Hey, listen, you all have to get rabies shots."
Yeah, because nobody knows. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a bat last night. There was a bat last night in my backyard. I have a umbrella on my table, umbrella on my deck, and I made a bonfire. My daughter wanted to make s'mores, so she got all the s'more stuff out, and she like opened up the umbrella and was like, "Ah!" I was like, "What is it? Is it a bug?" And she's like, "It has feet." I was like, "Oh, that's a bat." She ran in the house, and then we couldn't
love umbrellas. Let me tell you, there's a whole song about it.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So this was all right. This is I'm clearly just trying to dodge the question of something wild happening in my hometown.
We're building to it. We're building to it.
But so I took French in high school and college. I forget where I heard the song, but there's a song called Une chauve-souris, which that's French for bat, but like the literal translation is shaved mouse. That's what they call. Yeah, I don't know why, but anyway, the whole song is about a bat that falls in love with an umbrella.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. So I guess that's just a thing they love. I guess it's a dark space.
Yeah, it's safe. It's cozy. They can crawl up, feel protected. You should build a bat house.
I had a buddy of mine,
in
my friend who's an X-ray tech and works in the ER all the time, was like, "Hey, people are getting bit by bats all the time, and they get rabies, so don't go near it." And so my son finally got rid of it, but
send your son to get rid of it.
Yeah, well,
that's why. Well, we do. He's a critter guy. Like he wants to be an entomologist. So
okay,
he loves like spider. Like he'll just go take a walk and go to the woods to try to find spiders. Like he's that kind of guy. So he loves everything. Like if there's a cockroach, he gets it and lets it outside. Like he loves all of it. So we just let him get there. Hey, there's a bat. Oh, I love it. And he went right up. I was like, don't get too close to it. You're gonna get rabies. But he wasn't afraid of it at all. All right. Well, I'm on Ridgefield, Connecticut's website. You don't have to talk about high school if it's like
no.
I'm not trying to make you like.
Oh no, not at all. I'm just literally
murders,
struggling to find something that merits
you could
the
talk
drama, the drama level.
What about the Nutmeg Festival? Do you ever go to the Nutmeg Festival in Ridgefield?
I have not been to the Nutmeg Festival. Let's see. Oh, you know what? The one thing I can think of that happened when I was in high school is one of our football coaches got fired for like basically, actually, I think something like this. I just saw like a viral video of like another coach doing this, but basically like during a game got mad at one of the players and hit him.
Really?
And then got fired for that.
Yeah.
And
okay. There's some juicy. That's some juicy drama.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
it. So that's about, and that was I was on the football team, and that was our offensive line coach.
It was your offensive
Oh.
line coach. So were you there when it happened? Or did you see
I
it
think
happen?
so. It was the year after I quit. So basically, I had
Oh,
slipped a
okay.
disc
Oh
in the
no.
weight room, and so I was like, I had to choose between football and wrestling, and I was like, I'm gonna. And I really didn't like my football experience, so I was like, I'm gonna try and go for wrestling, and just like not do football my senior year, and that was when
Okay.
it happened.
So
So
what disc did you slip?
it was one of the lower ones. I don't remember which one
D5,
anymore.
E4. No, I don't know what they are either, but
Something like
Well, the
that. Yeah.
L's. It's
because
like
I had a discectomy a few years back, probably about
Oh,
10 years ago now.
a
And I still don't know
backiotomy.
which one it is. A what? No,
yeah.
back discectomy. So they shaved down my bulging disc.
Okay.
I just feel like
Discectomy.
it's like people who had back problems would kind of like stick together. Like, hey, what
Yeah,
was
no,
your
you
back
should.
problem?
It's
It's like war
true. Yeah.
story.
My
Yeah.
lumbar still acts up like crazy. So,
Really? Well, being
yeah.
6'3", I would guess. I feel like, and I'm real short, so I'm 5'8". So like, I always feel like big, tall people have trouble
Like
with
they
their
have to bend
backs.
over.
Like I don't know, because you have to bend
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
everywhere to get through doorways and stuff.
The big one was I used to work at Domino's. I would deliver
Oh,
pizzas, but part of like the job
Yes.
was cleaning up like all the pans and stuff like that when you
oh,
had
and
some extra
the sink is
time.
so low.
Yeah, the sink
Yeah.
is super low, and they
Yeah.
have for the personal pan pizzas, they use like these cast iron pans that are
Yeah.
so like they get just once you stack like 20 or 30 of them in the
Yeah.
sink, they get
They're
super
not.
heavy.
Heavy
Yeah.
as
And I was
hell.
always the one who would try and get through all the dishes because I didn't want to be there till 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
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 And so like at one point I hurt it so bad that I like basically couldn't walk for a couple days.
Oh
And
shit.
Oh.
that was how I
So
quit that job. I was like, y'all, and I remember distinctly, I think it was like a hurricane coming through, and they were like, no, we're going to stay open. We don't think it's going to be that bad. And y'all better not call out. And so I literally had to go over there with my crutches and be like, listen, I got to call out, but don't give me crap about this. Like, I'm just going to have to be out like indefinitely because this is
Yeah.
like messed up. And they're like, okay, we see it. We get it. Just like call us back when you're ready to come back. And I just never did.
you just never went
Because
back.
it was just, yeah, I had another job too at the time. So
Was that a high
Good.
school
Yeah.
job or after high
no,
school?
I did that after college for
Okay.
yeah, it was just, extra income. But yeah.
I ask because my son just got a job at Papa John's. So he's gonna start delivering pizzas. And
Oh,
so,
our rivals.
so yeah, you're rivals. You guys
Still,
are-
I'm still Team Domino's for life.
yeah, forever. Yeah. Okay. So I see Eugene O'Neill is from Ridgefield, Connecticut.
Eugene O'Neill.
The playwright,
Oh,
Nobel Prize Eugene O'Neill. He's a big one, right? I think. I was
Is
just
it
looking.
that Eugene
oh, you
O'Neill?
know
It could
who
be a
that
different
does
Eugene
remind
O'Neill.
me of?
It says it's a playwright, like Pulitzer Prize winning. Oh, and then David Cassidy.
Ooh.
Who else?
So
is from-
Maurice Sendak lives in Ridgefield, Connecticut,
Nice.
and he lived
Nice.
right near one of my friends who I played Magic cards with.
Who's
We're
this?
both in the
Nice.
Who are we talking about?
Maurice
Sendak.
Sendak.
Where the wild things are?
Why don't I know who that is?
Because
Oh, Sendak. Oh, the writer of the Wild Things.
see,
yeah.
Yeah.
So you know him personally?
No, he lived near one of my friends who I played Magic cards with, and who was
That's
also on the
cool.
football and wrestling team. So we had this shared secret that we were both ultra nerds, but we were trying to be on these like big jockey teams.
So what was your high school team's mascot? Tell me that.
We were the Tigers.
The Tigers, and what team
That's
colors?
nice.
What were your team colors?
We were orange and black.
Okay.
When your
That's good.
mascot's the tiger, you can either go orange and white or orange and black, and we went true tiger colors.
Yeah, true
Yeah.
tiger colors. The fighting tigers. So that kind of ties it in. So it doesn't have to
There
be
it goes,
murder or
yeah.
UFOs. And then I think you
No.
did say last time you've never seen an alien, you've never seen a ghost, because I was trying to like ask everybody those questions.
That's true.
But I've since seen. Oh, you know what? Harvey Firestein is from Ridgefield. Also,
You know who's also from Ridgefield is Bill Lawrence, a creator of Scrubs, and now I used to say it was creator of Scrubs, but now Ted Lasso is the big one.
Yeah, no.
And Dr. Cox from Scrubs was named
McGinley.
after a biology teacher from the high school I went to.
What? See,
yeah.
now that's the kind of juicy stuff.
Now
That's what it was. Yeah,
that's
that's the
exactly like a
juicy.
murder.
That's
murder level gossip
murder or
right
pop
there.
culture, yeah. But
Exactly.
Scrubs is great, and so that's awesome. That's a cool
Sacrificing
little
your
claim.
childhood for pop culture.
Yeah, and the guy, the rest of the high school coach that got fired for hitting somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
can't
that
hit
was
kids. You know,
yeah, that one was
Especially when
less.
they're not yours.
Yeah,
And you worked at Domino's Pizza. That's awesome. And that you got hurt.
Sacrificed your back to the
Your
dish
back
pit.
injury was probably
No.
more from Domino's than it was from football.
probably. I really aggravated it there. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah, no, that's they go out of their way to not just Domino's, just restaurant sinks. I think they're just like they have to be a certain uncomfortable like
Yeah,
height.
OSHA regulations are they must destroy at least 3 vertebrae each month.
Exactly. They don't
That's
care
right,
whose
yeah.
vertebra.
Yeah.
Or if they're all in the same person. Yeah.
Yeah. Gruff here, Steve has worked in many a kitchen, many a greasy spoon diner. Those are all great things. So we've talked about a lot of stuff. We've had you here now for over an hour. Thank you for doing this. This was great fun. And so
thank you for sharing.
I think I touched a little bit on this recording about how we met. And that it was at a nerdy night show that you did for me with Jen Bianchi brought you. And I would honestly say any friend of Jen Bianchi's has got to be a friend of mine. She's hilarious. So how do you know Jen from Comedy Works, or how did you guys start working together?
Yeah, we've been doing improv together for I first met Jen probably a couple years into when I started improv, and so we've been on various teams ever since then. Solid Dad, Elegant Pierogies.
I love these names.
You can just list off a bunch of random improv names.
Did you say Elegant Pierogies?
Yeah, that one was.
So.
I love that name. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Jen Bianchi is fucking hilarious. As are you, but you're in Charlotte now, April?
I'm in Charlotte now, and so and Jen's in Raleigh, so I will occasionally venture back there. We do our Capital City Culture Club show in Raleigh the first Saturday of each month.
Okay. So you go all the way up there for that?
Yeah, that's actually, we just did one yesterday.
Okay. And are you going to be performing in the Queen City Comedy Experience next weekend?
I am. I'm going to be performing with Foxes on Friday, and I'm going to be performing with Capital City Culture Club on Saturday.
Oh, what show is that on Saturday?
You know what? Let me check.
I should know this at this point.
Let's see. I should have it here too, but
so maybe if I get this out quick enough.
So it was called.
Well, you could just cut this together as a promo.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah. Okay. It's the Sunday supper at the Mint Museum, starting at 7:30.
Okay, gotcha. Saturday night. Yeah, cool. Awesome. That's great. So that's what I guess I thought you were moving to Charlotte, but I wasn't sure if you officially moved. But so we became Facebook friends, I think, after, I don't know when. Honestly, I don't remember, but it must have been after, obviously, we met. And now you have moved to the top of the list of my alphabetical friends. You overpassed AJ Foster, who will also be at the Comedy Festival, doing a stand-up show.
As I like to think of it, I'm just your number one friend now.
You are my number one friend, and AJ has moved to number 2. Actually, I think you're gonna be in the same show as AJ, the pop-up comedy show.
If AJ disagrees, we can fight it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have you guys fight at the thing. So that'll be great.
Comedically or with fisticuffs, as long as the rules are established. I could probably bust out some old wrestling moves from high school.
Yeah. You were a wrestler. Yes, I didn't realize. So, well, that said, so now that we've had this conversation and we've got to know each other, and you've shared so much, do you think we should be Facebook friends still? Should we remain Facebook friends?
I know we should.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, we're gonna have a
Wonderful.
blast at the Queen City Comedy
Wonderful.
Experience next weekend. That's gonna be a lot of fun, and come to the after party. The after party at Gilda Brewing on
Ooh.
Friday
Ooh.
till 2 a.m. with karaoke. Do you
Oh,
do
wow.
karaoke? Do you sing karaoke?
Oh, it's been a while, but we'll have to see once we get there.
We'll see how many drinks you have.
The
so.
magic of the night. You never know when karaoke will break out.
Yes. Well, thank you for the magic will break out, like Magic the Gathering, which you are a fan of.
Get
You brought
your
it back
decks.
Brought it back around, baby. Yes. Well, thank you for your time. Thanks for doing this with us.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna have to figure out another way to get you on. Maybe just an episode of American Timeline.
Yeah,
talk
just-
about
Yeah, that
Pop
would be
by.
fun.
Murder.
I'm always,
Yeah.
always
He
excited.
could give you a murder to talk about.
Yeah, I'll
Yes,
sign
that's,
you.
once you get, it's hard for me. It's just like with comedy. Sometimes it's hard for me to think of the thing, but once you give it to me, I'll just run with it. So
Yeah.
if I get a murder, we'll talk about it all day.
Yeah, we
Outstanding.
assign historical things, so we'll do that. So cool. Well, thanks for being here, Gruff. You got anything to say?
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank
It's
you.
been really cool meeting you.
And
I
you
like
guys
getting
are
to know
both
you.
long-haired friends.
Oh, long hair pals.
I had long hair once during
You
the
did.
pandemic, also. But
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you for this, and thanks for doing this. And
Yeah.
this episode will come out in early 2027.
All right.
But there'll be a part of it cut into a promo very quickly.
I think I might try to.
I
do
think
that.
you should.
That
I think
could
it'd be a
fun.
good promo.
Yeah, I
This
gotta
us
figure it out.
talking about you cutting this promo could be part of that promo.
Yes, you just
That would
talking about
be-
me doing that.
That people love the inside baseball. of it
Exactly.
all,
They-
so
yeah.
that's like
Inside,
what people are here for. It's what's the West Wing sort of like.
They want
how
the,
it
they
all
want the
comes
veils
off.
ripped down. Yeah.
They want
It was
us to
like-
just
I miss
peek
West
back,
Wing.
peek back the curtain.
Yeah.
Oh, Aaron Sorkin. I was
Aaron
like,
Sorkin.
I was gonna say Aaron Sorkin, but then I couldn't think of Aaron Sorkin's name, so I was like West Wing. And I was like, it's not as
It's-
strong if you don't say Aaron Sorkin. But now,
Well, it worked. Aaron Sorkin was there.
yeah, just edit
Yes.
in where I rambled about
Yeah,
West
I'll
Wing.
make it
Just-
sound like you.
yeah, just splice in me saying Aaron Sorkin over however many seconds that was. Just like really draw it out.
Now I got all this editing work to do. Very
It's all right.
Sorkinian.
It'll go quick.
It's very Sorkinian. All right, I'm going to end this now, and the recording will automatically end. I'm not going to lose it this time. Thank
Good.
you for being here, April Kirby. You're awesome, and thanks for starting this new show or series or something called Friend Check
Thank you.
within American Time.
Thank you for having me.
This was an American story.
I can't wait for Friday night, so I can go out on the weekend and ruin my life. I'm gonna drink and drive and crash my car. I'll tell the policeman that I'm a star. Yeah, 'cause you and me, we're birds of a feather. Yeah, we only like the bands who worship the devil. Yeah, you like to drink the blood of the goat. Now, baby, I can tell. So take my hand, let me lead you down the
Matt Truman Ego Trip is the greatest band of all time. Buy their music.